As we close out 2023, 2024 is just around the corner. But in this episode, myself and Andy are going to basically cover everything that we've been up to in the past year, talk about what's happened in general practice and primary care, and also look forward and give you an idea of what we think is going to happen in 2024 to all of us in general practice. Let's take enhance your primary care and learning. Hello, eGP learners, and welcome to this final episode of 2023 as myself and Andy look back at what has been a truly interesting and chaotic year for many reasons, but also look forward to 2024 with yourselves as well. How are we doing there, Andy?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Looking forward to, as I say, just going down memory lane and having a look at what happened over the last year, looking at our highlights and what we thought were the key sort of themes running through what we've been covering in the world of general practice over the last year, and then looking forwards and getting our crystal ball out and seeing what might be coming in the future. Also, in this annual episode, we always look back at the predictions that we've made over the last few years, see if they were right, and we make some predictions for the next year. So quite excited to be doing all of that with you again, Gandhi.
Definitely. And I guess, shall we start off by looking back at what's happened this past year? I mean, there's been so many things that have happened to general practice, haven't there? And we were thinking about the streams that we've done as kind of like a marker point for some of this. But I guess, some of the big things that obviously happened in the past year, there's been the strikes, there's been the financial situation, there's been other kind of changes to general practice, and particularly modern general practice, the advent of it and stuff happening. What stuck out to you, Andy, in terms of the past year for general practice?
Yeah. I guess we've not mentioned AI as well, because we spent quite a lot of time talking about that at the beginning of the year. So I think that that's quite an interesting theme. Lots of potential there. I'm not sure that we saw much coming to fruition in 2023. Might be
We'll
something
come
to
to
look
that
out
in a second
for.
when we talk about some of the streams, but you're definitely right about that.
Another thing that I quite enjoyed actually was we went down to YouTube headquarters, didn't we, with Google a few times. I think we both went together twice, and you went on a few additional occasions. And that was all about exploring the role that video is playing in health and supporting people's health at the moment, and what it might play in the future. So it was really quite interesting to be part of that as well. Yeah, It's been a busy year. Lots of political uncertainty. We tend to cover new health secretaries, and it felt like we'd had a number of new ones this year, but actually we only had one new one. I think Steve Barclay gave way to Victoria Atkins a few weeks ago. It felt like we might have had more, so I had to check, but just the additional one health secretary this year. Much better than 2022.
Definitely on that point. And you're right. I mean, YouTube was definitely a big thing for us. I mean, obviously people are probably watching and listening to us on YouTube at the moment, or some of the other platforms that we stream to. But as you mentioned, we went down to YouTube Central headquarters back in January together. I've been down a few more times. Really thankful to the YouTube Health team. And actually, this channel is now certified by YouTubers, as being provided by medical content creators as well. And that's happened towards the September time of this year and things. But that was great. I mean, that was definitely one of my highlights, being able to talk at a YouTube event about how video can be a useful part of the patient journey was just absolutely amazing and stuff. But we did do some other cool things as well, didn't we, Andy? Harrogate springs to mind, that's for sure.
Yes. We went to the board game conference in
We did.
Harrogate. That was great. We both got a personal interest in board games, and we were able to go live there. So it was great to take some of our kit with us so that we were able to go live from our Airbnb in Harrogate, and did one of the most watched episodes of the year. In fact, it might be worth. Do you want to talk about our most watched episodes of the year?
So I mean, this is it. It was, I mean, most people probably recognize it. It was the GP contract update when it came out. So this was the big change that happened just at the tail end of, I think, March and stuff. Myself and Andy, it came out the following day. We were heading up to Harrogate for a board game aircon. If anybody ever wants to go, it's an amazing event. We had an absolutely amazing time. But yeah, I think we had 120 people live at one point joining us on a Friday evening, which is pretty momentous, to be honest.
We did, yeah. Look, this is our Airbnb. It was quite nice, wasn't it? Quite a good setup there. And I think ultimately we got about 3,200 views of the stream and had about 120 people live.
Yeah, a little bit more, 4,500 views since then. In fact, I'll just have a quick look. Apparently some people have even looked at it in the past couple of days, so they're still watching it, Andy.
Fantastic. And that was all back to talking about modern general practice, as
Yeah.
you were talking about, which I think was probably one of the biggest stories of the year. I know that we were all quite surprised that it was
Mhm.
possible for the government to vary the GP contract outside of a contract review, in the middle of a 5-year agreed contract and without involving the BMA or the GPC. And it was really interesting to pick that apart and look at the mechanism by which they were actually able to do that. And it was basically in the fine print or some of the standard print that I think are in a lot of these government contracts, that they can choose to vary them if there is sufficient public need. And that's what they chose to do, and push through those
Yeah.
changes outside of normal negotiations with the GPC to change how patients can request appointments and contact with their general practice, and how general practice needs to respond. So that was really one of the big stories of the year, and it was great fun covering it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And we've had some other momentous things happen. So we talked about AI. I did a live stream with a company called Nabla, looking at how AI can help you manage your notes. Now I know there's now a variety of other providers, but I mean this one hit almost 3,000 plus views since then. So massive live stream. I know loads of people jumped in onto that one and had loads of questions and engagement with that. And then I guess for me, more recently, the big one was the online consultations review I did with 7 different providers just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, that was monumental. So as you can see, that was taken where I am now. So some of our eagle-eyed EGP learners may recognize I've kind of changed location from where I've been doing things in home and stuff. But yeah, that was chaotic to say the least, if I'm being honest, Andy. I know you couldn't join us that day. I was slightly gutted. I was like, damn it.
I
I was
know,
hoping
I
I'd
was good. I was gutted as well, because that would have been a really good one
yeah.
to join you for. But people can look at the chapters and jog through. We've got Rapid Health, Evergreen Life, Engage Consult, Blinks, eConsult. Gosh, you were very busy. Anima, AccuRx. And then I think you're sort of breaking things apart and having a panel discussion towards the end as well, which looks like it was sort of pretty epic. Lots of people on screen. So that looks like a great watch. Already at 1,000. So that might ultimately be the highest viewed thing out of 2023 when you collect a few more views over the next few months. So that was good.
Yep.
Gandhi, so few of the themes running through the year, I guess, just to think about. So there was the strikes running
Yep.
through the year. Did you have any kind of thoughts or reflections on that now that the year's coming to an end?
So I mean, they're still happening. We're actually on a strike day today, and there's due to be some more in the new year. Obviously, at the start of the new year and stuff. I think obviously we've seen some offers being made. I think the government's perspective of the strikes and the profession's perspective of the strikes clearly are operate at opposite ends. What will be interesting to see is hopefully they will get back around the table. I think that's what many people are anxiously waiting for. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the rhetoric plays into this, because I'm aware that just a couple of days ago, I had to do something which I never thought I would have to do, which was actually take a patient to a hospital from clinic.
Really?
Yeah. And this was not a strike day. I'll be clear on that point. It was not a strike day. It was not after a strike day or anything like this. It was a normal working day. But the only option I had was to take this patient because the wait time was too long. This was already 8 o'clock in the evening. So daily fail, the fact that general practice is closed. Actually, at that point, we were closed because it was 8 o'clock in the evening. And yeah, obviously, I'm not going into more detail for patient
Yeah.
identifiable reasons and stuff. But yeah, basically, I just dropped the patient off at the QMC.
Wow. That's sort of sorry state of affairs, isn't it, when that's
It is.
necessary? Goodness
But the
me.
really weird thing, so I've asked online afterwards how many people have had to do that, and over 40% of the people I asked, we've done exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Gosh. So strikes that they're continuing into the new year.
Mhm.
We've had a recent change in health secretary, haven't we?
We
And
have,
a potential change in tone with that.
possibly, yeah.
We'll see what comes of that potential for a reset, isn't there, with a new health secretary? So we'll see what happens going forwards. The I mean, we're not looking forward to next year. I'm beginning to think about
No.
the election and what that might mean, but maybe we'll get to that in a minute. I mean, another one of the big themes was the AI theme, and that was, the sleeper hit in terms of
Yep.
videos that were done last year on the eGP Learning channel. The Nabla and the AI video.
Mhm.
You got any thoughts about AI? There was a lot of promise at the beginning of the year. Any
Yeah,
thoughts
there is.
about where that went or where that might be going, Andy?
I think we're going to see more developments into that. I think RPA in particular, automation, is going to hit more general practice because the concept of AI, I think, is still something that people are quite hesitant to. But I think AI assistance in terms of administration things and that area, I think we're going to see a massive explosion of. And already we're seeing some of that with some of the system providers looking at using those more effectively. Not in the sense of, I think, what most people worry about, which is AI-based clinical triage. I think that we're not going to see a huge amount of, but you never know. So Google have just announced their Med LLM, so their a large language model for medicine, effectively, and how that will work. And when Gemini comes on board, which is Google's version of ChatGPT, I think we may see an expansion of that going forward and stuff. So lots of interesting stuff to happen. I think the other thing with AI, got the opportunity to speak to loads of providers in the past year. I think we can't forget the conferences you and I have been to, Andy. You know, we had a really cool opportunity to speak to loads of people at conferences, in particular the Best Practice Conference. We've run our own, obviously, with GP5T for trainers and that kind of stuff, which our next one is going to be our first ever face-to-face one in Nottingham in April. But, you know, that's allowed various other things to happen. I got to go down to the King's Fund to talk about, you know, various other things, including, again, videos, part of the patient journey, but heard a lot about how AI may change medicine, not just general practice, but medicine itself and things. So I think there's definitely a focus of that coming forward.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think a lot of the promise is still in the future. I think I've seen some movement in, as you say, robotic process automation, but a lot of that doesn't really look like AI in the grand sense that we're
No,
seeing in other sort of parts of the economy and from sort of Chat GPT, Bard from Google and so forth. You know, it's the robotic process automation seems actually much more basic and things that might have been possible a few years ago, but we're just kind of beginning to see those promises from a few years ago come to fruition. So it's going to be interesting to watch that
true.
space. The other thing which just struck me about last year was the increased profile of health inequalities, and it's sort of a important topic, I guess, for us. We work in disadvantaged
Mm-hmm.
areas, and we have continued to see health inequalities having a prominent place in strategic documents coming from the NHS England, on from other think tanks and other areas, and it really feels like that wasn't a flash in the pan, and that there will be an increased focus on trying to reduce health inequalities going forwards. That was really good, and we did some of the most enjoyable videos for me, actually, where we focused on some of the
Mm-hmm.
documents and discussions around health inequalities. So that was quite a highlight of the year for me as well, and long may that continue.
Definitely agree on that. I think if people want to find out more about some of that stuff, then definitely check back on our episode we did just before Christmas that talked about some of the financial incentive changes that are happening in general practice. In particular, your opportunity to partake in a survey around that, which absolutely we would recommend you do so and things. But I guess, Andy, we talked about health inequality, we talked about all that kind of stuff. I think the one other thing I think we shouldn't forget, for me at the very least, for the past year, was the PCM Plus stuff that we did. So Ben and Tara, massive shout out to both of them. I know for me, Tara's been absolutely amazing, supporting, doing more stuff. So actually, some people may have noticed a difference in tone in some of the communications I've had recently over the past few months. That's partly because one of Tara's team have been supporting me, and actually, I've had a VA for the past few months, if you can believe it, Andy. So, you know, it's weird how it works, but I'm kind of enjoying it. It's been kind
Yeah,
of cool. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
fantastic. Yeah,
but yeah, big shout out to both of them. I've loved being part of the PCM Plus course. And we've got a massive event again planned in April, haven't we, in Nottingham? So if people do want to have a look at things, we'll put the links down to that so you can actually join us in person for what will be an absolutely massive conference in Nottingham and things. I know you've had a great time on the course as well, haven't you?
yeah, it's been great. So for those that aren't aware, so PCM Plus is a course delivered in collaboration with eGPlearning, myself and Gandhi, and Tara Humphreys from the Business of Primary Care, and Ben Gowland from Primary Care Podcasts. Have I got that right?
General Practice Podcast
General
slash
Practice
Arkema
Podcast.
Healthcare.
Yeah, just drew a blank there for a second for some reason in my mind. And it's a course focused on primary care network leaders. So we mainly get a cohort of network managers
Mm-hmm.
and clinical directors and a few other leaders from primary care networks, and take them through 7 sessions with supporting seminars in between over the course of the year. The cohort get to know one another, we get to know them, and it's proved to be a really, really fun and beneficial experience to be a facilitator on that. But hopefully those people who were involved enjoy it as well. And then there's a live conference, once a year connected to that event, and I'm really excited about that for next year. So
if you want to come, 17th of April, keep the calendar clear and stuff, but it'll be happening in Nottingham and stuff. But we talked about 2023. Shall we talk about 2024 and our predictions?
So every year for the past about 5 years, we've made predictions, Gandhi, and I've looked up the old predictions that we have made before. So I'm going to we'll just go through them from the first time that I think we made a note through to predicting for next year, really. So in 20, it's a predictions for 2020, or I think 2019 to 2020, were I predicted the bursting of the PCN bubble. So I don't think that really happened. I think there was a lot of promise around PCNs. They were the answer to all the problems in the health service at that stage, and I felt that maybe that they wouldn't live up to that. And I'm not sure they've quite solved all the problems, but the bubbles kept growing. They've and consolidating, and it certainly hasn't burst. There's still a lot of investment in primary care networks and promise for that idea of neighborhood working. It might be called something else after the end of the current PCN DES, but I think that level and manner and that scale of working 50,000 population will continue. Candy, you predicted a shift to remote working. This was prior to the onset of the pandemic, so you absolutely nailed that, because the pandemic came and remote working was everywhere. So well done. Do you want to take a quick victory lap, Candy? How did you see that coming?
I don't know. Time Lord Istari powers as ever. They come to my aid.
That's good. Maybe you could have done more. If you'd seen the pandemic coming, maybe you should have done more to help
invest in PPE.
Yeah. Anyway, and then so coming through to 2020, I predicted shortages of things. I think we were looking at supply chains being squeezed at that stage. That's continued to come through year after year, I think, particularly in terms of drug shortages.
Let's be honest, it's just getting worse and worse. So today, apparently, there's a shortage of hydrocortisone cream. So God knows what we're going to do now.
Oh dear.
But yeah.
Oh dear. And you predicted the end of primary care, which I don't think quite came true.
No. Well, it was a little bit facetious, but I guess it was more about just trying to say that primary care would probably shift and change. It has changed, so I guess maybe slightly true, but it wasn't by any means the end of primary care. And then I guess 21 to 22, you talked about the resurgence of general practice. So going back to what was core general practice, vaccinations, resetting the relationship and stuff. And I kind of said the rise of private medicine would happen. I guess I was a little bit late with that one. That definitely seems to have been more of a thing this particular year, I'd say, because we're seeing definitely more of that. But
nothing wrong with being early, Gandhi. Similarly, I think I might have been a little bit early with the resurgence of traditional general practice as well, because in 2022 we saw the Health Select Committee report chaired by Jeremy Hunt, with quite a lot of discussion around continuity of care and more traditional things, and suggesting that maybe there'd been an over emphasis of access at the expense of some of the more sort of traditionally valued elements of primary care. So maybe we're both a bit early that year. Moving into 22, Andy predicted the end of QOF. Okay, still not happened, but people are increasingly talking about it. And obviously our episode last week was about the consultation around incentives in primary care, which may lead to the end of QOF. It might lead to the changing of QOF, I suspect. Or so
maybe you were a little bit early on that one. Unfortunately, I don't think I was early on mine, which was the practice closures stuff. And we've definitely heard over the past year of several practices closing. And unfortunately, I think we may see more to come this coming year in 2024 and things. But hey ho.
That brings us up to the current day, Gandhi. So as we sit here looking forward to 2024, we've both made some predictions. Shall I go first?
Go for it.
So I'm going to a little bit of a throwback to 21-22, actually. Continuity makes a comeback. That's my prediction. I think that we will be talking more about continuity over the course of the next year. Actually, in a news update that we did I think the last one that we did a few weeks ago, we talked about the various ways that continuity of care can be measured. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see an increased focus on continuity of care, because I think it is so valuable, so important to the patient experience as well as access, and actually does have a positive impact on actual clinical outcomes. So I think, I hope that we'll be talking more about continuity, and I think that we will. And Gandhi, what's your prediction?
So I was contemplating going for the practice closures one again, just to make sure that was right. But I'm going to be slightly different. So rather than closures, I'm going to say I think we're going to see the rise of practice mergers in 2024. I think we're going to see more amalgamation of variety of things, not just in terms of practices themselves, but the providers as well. We've kind of seen a little bit of that already. So, there definitely seems to be some amalgamation of providers happening. I think Agilio has definitely expanded significantly. We saw obviously EMIS being bought out this year as well by United Healthcare and things. But I think it's going to be the year for primary care in terms of mergers and acquisitions and stuff. And maybe we'll see that change. I know for me, that's definitely a process because my practice is going through a merger right now. So yeah, I think we'll see more of it.
Yeah, I could certainly see that being true, Gandhi. Yeah, so I guess sort of consolidation of practices and consolidation of those companies which support general practice. It'll be an interesting thing to watch.
Definitely.
So let's see if those predictions come true as we go to 2024. And I guess the final thing to do is maybe just to think about some of those themes that we might be seeing in 2024, some of those things that we might be talking about on the podcast.
Yep.
So I'll kick us off.
Go for it.
I'm going to go for the obvious one. So there will be a new contract, GMS contract, and PCN DES, because both of those agreed contracts come to their end. So I'm sure we'll be talking about what happens, at the end of those contracts and what's coming in terms of the new contracts. I guess we might not have that much to say because there might be a bit of a placeholder contract, for another year while people take stock of what should happen next while the election settles. But I think that will be an important point of the year for us when we learn about what's happening with the new contracts. So I think that will be an important piece of work for people to that we will do and that people can follow when we have a look at those arrangements. Any thoughts on that, Gandhi?
No, I definitely agree. I mean, increasingly we're hearing that it's going to be a holding contract, as you said. But I think we may hopefully see the forward looking to what the following year will look like in terms of a more sustainable and manageable contract, and definitely one for general practice to keep it going. Because we all know if general practice fails, the whole healthcare system will absolutely fail. That kind of feels like it's failing at times anyway. But I think, we know that there's going to be changes to that. We know there's going to be consultations on the incentive scheme. So maybe we will finally see the end of QOF, or QOF mutate into something else, possibly. Who knows? We shall find out. I guess other things, well, the strikes are going to keep happening, aren't they, Andy? They're already planned for the first week of January.
They are.
But maybe, just maybe, we may actually see the first GP strike.
Yeah, I mean, we talked at length, didn't we, about whether that was even possible last year, and there's differing opinions on that. And the other thing which is interesting, we talked last week about the Doctors and Dentists Review Board being asked by the Health Secretary to provide some guidance on pay increase for GP partners. One wonders if that's not where people would want it to be. That could be that could spark some sort of industrial action of some type from the sector. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But yes, there'll certainly be something happening in strikes next year. I suppose the big thing that will happen next year is there will be an election at some point next year. I think it has to happen during 2024, I think, because of the Fixed Term Parliament Act.
Yeah.
I think we have to have one before Christmas. So that will be interesting. We may have a new health secretary. We may not. We may have a new prime minister. We may have a completely different direction in terms of health and primary care policy. So that's going to be a big thing to watch as well.
And I guess the next question is, what's the next big thing for eGPlearning? What have we got planned? So one guarantee I can give you, so we will hit 15,000 subscribers in 2024. I know that because we're at 200 people off it. So, so that will definitely happen. But I guess other things that all of you eGP learners have absolutely got to look forward to. So first and foremost, myself and Andy will be here to keep going live and stuff. We love this. I mean, for me, it's almost therapy, to be honest. So, I love doing this every single week with Andy and stuff, and well, a couple of weeks and things. And absolutely can guarantee we're going to still be here to see you through all the chaos and things. As we mentioned, we have got a couple of cool things we've got planned for 2024. Our first hybrid conference, well, our first proper hybrid conference, and also a joint one with the PCM Plus team as well. And some other cool things we've got planned, haven't we, Andy?
Oh yeah, there'll be lots happening throughout the year, so people need to ring that bell, subscribe, follow, all of those things, so that they can keep up with what's happening. So I guess people out there might have their own predictions for 2024. We'd be really interested to know on social media or in the comments below.
Yeah, stick it down below. Let's see if you can match ours and keep it as a record, and we'll come back to it next year and have a look at them and see if people have given their predictions of where they've landed in terms of comparisons to what's happened when we do this again at the end of 2024. But I think for now, myself and Andy would love to wish you all a happy new year, because
And
whether you're watching this in 24.
Thanks everyone for following and support. Thanks Gandhi for being there, as I'm sure we've all had difficult times in the last year. So thanks for being there for the EGP learners and for myself over the course of the last year. That's it's great.
Definitely.
So
yeah, absolutely catch up with us as we move forward in 2024. Andy mentioned it. Subscribe, get notified, find out all the information and things. And if you want to check out something funny, something helpful, something just a little bit frivolous, shall we say, then check out this episode right here, and we will catch you in 2024.